We found the distance between 2 points. Now we're finding the midpoint between 2 points. So to clarify, the distance is a length, right? You could literally just take a ruler and measure that length, and that would be the distance. Now, of course, we don't do that. We usually just use algebra to figure it out. But distance is a length. Midpoint is an actual point. It's what is the point that is exactly in between these 2 points? That's all we're looking for. What's the point in the middle? So all of your answers for distance, your answers were going to be a length, right? It was just a number like square root of 29 or the square root of 8. Well, the midpoint, all of your answers are going to be in the form x, y, because they're actual points. So your answers should always be, in the form x, y. Okay, so let's find the midpoint between these 2 points. We've got 4, 7, and 2, 2. What's the midpoint? It's the point that's exactly in the middle. If I was walking from one house to the other, where would I be exactly in between the 2 houses? Well, if you think about it, I went over 2, and then I went up 5, right? So how far would I have to go over to be exactly halfway? Well, I could just go over 1, right? So I could go over 1, and then how far would I have to go up to be halfway? I'd have to go up 2.5, right? Because that's how far I would go, just halfway, and that point would be right here in the middle. So if I went from 2 over 1, I would end up at 3, right? And if I went up 2.5 from 2, I'd be at 4.5. And that is exactly in between 4, 7, and 2, 2. Now there's a formula for this. We can write it down. That's fine. You can use the formula, but I want you to understand where the formula came from. All we're doing is figuring out what's exactly halfway between the x's and what's exactly halfway between the y's. So the formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, right? That's exactly halfway between the two of them. That's how we find halfway, is average them. And y1 plus y2 over 2. So you just average the two values. So let's look at the same thing here. If I'm going at -1, 2, -3, 4, what's exactly halfway? Well, I went over 2 and then I went up 2, right? So if I go over 1 and up 1, I'm going to be halfway, right? So how to the left 1 from -1 would be -2. And up 1 from there would be 3. So the midpoint, you can't see that behind my head, the midpoint is -2, 3. It's a point halfway in between. And again, if we would have done this with the formula, we would have found the same thing. If we want to do this with the formula, we can say, let's add the two x's together. So -1 plus -3 over 2. And then we average the two y's, 2 plus 4 over 2. Well, that would be -4 over 2 and 6 over 2, which does in fact simplify to -2, 3. There you go. That's all there is to the midpoint.